I used to believe that family meant obligation, that blood automatically required silence, endurance, and forgiveness without limits. I believed that love meant tolerating what hurt, accepting what diminished me, and calling it normal because it came from people who shared my name. But what I learned slowly, painfully, is that not every bond is safe just because it is familiar. Some relationships do not nurture you. They shape you into someone smaller. And sometimes the most difficult boundaries are not with strangers or partners, but with the people who raised you. He thought he understood his mind, but what he didn't know was that a resource existed that could help him rebuild his life. You'll find it in the description and comments. At the time, I didn't know I was living without boundaries. I only knew that I was constantly exhausted in the place that was supposed to feel like home. For years, I told myself it was just how my family was. The comments that cut but were called jokes. The criticism framed as concern. When I expressed discomfort, I was told I was too sensitive. When I asked for respect, I was accused of being ungrateful. And because family history is heavy, I carried it in silence. I minimized my pain. I edited my emotions. I convinced myself that love meant endurance. Isn't it terrifying how easily we confuse loyalty with self-erasure? My mistakes were magnified. Every visit felt like walking into a courtroom where my life was on trial. And yet, I kept returning, hoping that if I explained myself better, if I stayed calmer, if I tried harder, things would finally change. The breaking point did not arrive in an explosion. It arrived in a moment of clarity. After another conversation where my feelings were dismissed and my limits were crossed, I sat alone and felt something I could no longer ignore. I was emotionally drained by the people who were supposed to protect me. My body carried tension before every interaction. My mind rehearsed responses before I even arrived. And I asked myself a question that changed everything. Why do I feel the need to disappear in order to belong? But I had never drawn a line and stood behind it. I began to understand what boundaries actually are. Not punishments, not ultimatums, not walls. Boundaries are declarations of self-respect. They are the rules you set for how you are allowed to be treated. And in families where control, guilt, or emotional manipulation are normalized, boundaries feel like rebellion. The day I said enough, my voice did not rise. The reaction was immediate: confusion, defensiveness, guilt. I was told I was changing, that I was being dramatic. That family doesn't work that way. What if I'm breaking something that can't be fixed? But beneath that fear was something stronger, the knowledge that staying silent had already cost me my peace, and I was no longer willing to pay that price. Imposing boundaries was not easy. Some were respected. Others were challenged. There were attempts to cross them, just this once. There were emotional appeals. There was the familiar pull of obligation. But each time I held my ground, something inside me grew steadier. I realized that boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about choosing yourself. They're about protecting your mental space when others refuse to. Rebuilding after years of family invalidation is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is learning to speak without apologizing, to say no without guilt, to exist without constantly monitoring how others will react. I had to untangle my worth from my role in the family system. I asked myself painful questions. Why did I believe love required sacrifice of self? Why did I confuse respect with obedience? Why did I think my needs were negotiable? And instead of blaming myself, I chose compassion. Today, I understand that boundaries do not destroy families. They reveal them. They show who is willing to meet you in mutual respect and who only wants access without accountability. You cannot force people to change, but you can decide how much of your inner world they are allowed to enter. And sometimes distance is not abandonment, it is self-preservation. You can access it too. The link is in the description and comments. Healing is not about cutting everyone off. It is about choosing relationships that do not require you to shrink. It is about learning that you are allowed to protect your mind, even from those you love. And when you finally say enough without anger, without guilt, something extraordinary happens. You stop surviving your relationships, and you begin living with dignity. True freedom begins in the mind, and only then appears in life. If this story resonated with you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and continue this journey with us as we uncover toxic minds and rebuild stronger ones together.